Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our sixth day of the online protest. We are delighted that many of you have joined us. We created this platform to ensure that many of you would have an opportunity to protest in tandem with the peaceful protests that are happening all across our nation as we speak. So we are delighted to have you. This is an opportunity for you to express your views, your comments, your protest, if you were out there on those streets, and also to focus our attention on accomplishing a few things. We already saw the arrest of the officers. That was one of the things we were hoping for as a goal. The second thing is we are amplifying our voices to the importance of the anti-choking legislation in Congress. And we're going to be encouraging you, especially as we close out on tomorrow night, to really lend your voices to our Congress and Senate around those issues. Well, that particular issue, should I say, the Eric Garner anti wow, I'm slipping right now. The Eric Garner Excessive Use of Force Prevention Act that was introduced by Representative Hakeem Jeffries. And also, we want an FBI investigation, the civil rights violation of George Floyd's life. I want to invite my co-host to come on and join me now, Bonita Hampton Smith, who's been with me the last several nights. She's producer of our beloved Community Talks. Welcome, Bonita, to the show tonight.
Good evening. How are you doing?
Hey, we're hanging in here. We're hanging strong.
6 days. 6 days.
6 days. But this movement has momentum, and we're excited about it tonight. We have a lot of important guests.
Yes.
And with a lot of ground to cover. So I'm telling everybody now, if you see some paper shuffling along, it's a lot for me to cover tonight. These critical conversations we're going to be having with parents and mothers and young people who are involved in this movement, and we're going to close out with Ellen DeGeneres, and so we're excited about our guest tonight.
Yes.
There's a common thread that our first guests have in common, and that is that all of them have written children's books that ask our children to not only reimagine the world, but to change it. As I think about that, I think about George Floyd's daughter who said, "My daddy changed the world." And as I saw her and looked in her eyes, I saw a glow in a weird kind of way, even though she had lost her father so horrifically. I saw this glow and I said, she's going to change the world.
Absolutely.
And so before we jump in and talk about the lessons that parents should be teaching their children, I want to show you a lesson that a child was teaching their parents. So I'm going to ask them if they would show this video real quick, and we'll bring our guest on from there.
Do you know how many?
No, shut up.
No.
Can you shut your mouth for a minute?
No.
Because I actually work in the ghetto. I see the people.
Do you know why they're in that position?
I see these people.
Do you understand the systematic and historical reason for why they're in that position?
They don't care. All they want to do is be ghetto.
No.
Yes, there's
no.
some that don't, and there's good people.
No.
Most of them just want to suck off the system or do something bad like drugs or gangs. And that's all they
have been oppressed. They have not been given the same opportunities you have had.
They do, and there's plenty of black people.
No, they don't, Dad. And you not
minorities.
recognizing that as an issue is the reason why it's still continuing today.
I see them all over. There's all kinds of successful people that are of color. It doesn't matter what color, brown, white.
But it's a lot harder for them to get to that
It
position.
doesn't matter. When they do, they're fine. But there's always filthy animals. And that's
You're calling people of color black animals. You're calling them animals. Are you kidding me? That's not okay. No matter what, that's not okay. No matter what, it's not okay.
It's not okay. Did you hear that young girl saying it's not okay, Bonita?
It is not okay. It's not okay.
No, racism is not okay.
Yeah, they say out of the mouths of babes, sometimes it's our children who will teach us best. It is not okay. Wow.
Yeah. And so, yeah, tell us about our guest that's going to come on and talk about what parents should be doing opposite of what we saw that parent doing.
Yeah, well, three amazing authors. We have none other than a global health advocate and author of 5 books, Chelsea Clinton. We have award-winning author Jacqueline Woodson, who is most known for her work, Miracle Boys, and her Newbery Honor, Brown Girls Dreaming. And we have none other than film producer and author Tanya Lewis Lee. Welcome. Welcome, my guest.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi there.
Hi, ladies.
Hi.
Good evening.
Thank you for showing that video. I mean, that young girl is what gives me hope.
Yeah.
You know, the
Indeed.
young people are the ones that are going to lead the way, and to see her there teaching her father, or trying to anyway, just touched me very much.
Yeah. Other reactions, Jacqueline, Chelsea?
I agree with what Tanya said. It's the young people who are, but it's always been the young people. When you look back in history, when you look at the civil rights movement, when you look at the climate change march and the anti-gun march and the student walkout against segregation in the public schools, these are young people. When you look even at the child labor laws and the protest against that, young people have always led us. So I see this bright and brilliant and beautiful girl, and I'm like, yes, let's have these conversations. Let's show how woke and smart they are, and continue to show those videos that really show us who's doing this big work here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just amen. And I would also say, Jacqueline, it's partly kind of why I think, your books are so important, because clearly she wasn't learning what she should have been learning at home. So it does mean it's so critical that our children and young people have kind of other ways to close the imagination gap, to imagine something different and better and more fierce and more equal. And it's one of the reasons, we're just such huge fans of Jacqueline in our house, because we need her voice, and we need to amplify her voice and celebrate you, because we need, young women like the young woman in that video to be able to hear other stories and kind of find other rights and righteousness than clearly what she was getting at home.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
yes. It's sorry, I was just gonna say thanks for that, Chelsea, and Dr. Rudeem Sims Bishop, who was on the forefront of the multicultural children's book, just pushing multicultural books into the landscape. She talked about the importance of kids having both mirrors and windows in their literature. So mirrors, so that people who look like me saw reflections of myself in the literature, and people who had no clue about people who look like me had windows into those worlds, and got to imagine, as you said, other ways that one could exist in this world outside of the fake narrative they were being given by, sometimes at home, sometimes by parents, sadly.
So how do you think that we can get more books like what you've written, Jacqueline, Tanya, even Chelsea? How do we get more books that reflect creating a more anti-racist society into the homes of white families, so that, we can change some of these understandings and perceptions, so that these young people can be like that young girl that we just saw?
It's sadly, we have to think about getting the books into the homes, and then the people reading them. So it's a two-step process. And what I've come across a lot is pushback in the schools, right? Schools are sometimes nervous about having certain books in the school libraries because parents have pushed against it. And those are too often books by and about the experiences of people of color. I think the books are out there. I think right now they're anti-racist book lists flooding the internet, and there are books like I just did a list for O Magazine about books for very young kids and books for older people, but it is a question of it goes, as Jason Reynolds talked about, it goes beyond the dialogue, right? It goes beyond the reading. People have to have these dialogues in their homes, right? They have to be able to not fight and be able to not be scared to talk about race in their homes, and the books are a jump off for that.
Yeah, and can I just say, Jacqueline, we need white parents to be having these conversations.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
This is no, but I mean,
we have them all the time.
Yeah, like white parents need to be having these conversations, and we have to start when our kids are young. I mean, I've talked for years about how like we do not shelter our children. Like we talk to our kids, and I always like pushback from other white parents saying like, so aren't you going to scar your children? I'm like, no, like I'm intentionally raising my children. Like, you know, the world is going to happen to them. I would like for them to be part of shaping the world that I want to grow old in and I want them to grow up in. And I just think we have to start expecting white parents to be having these conversations with our children and to start when our children are, you know, even younger before they can talk back, right? Because like that is how we will raise anti-racist children, and that's how hopefully we will more intentionally raise young women like the young woman we saw in the video earlier.
And I would add to that even further. I think from books to all sorts of media, right? Our children watch lots of television. I think it's really important that representation matters. So it needs to go across the board. I mean, the issue with white supremacy is all of the images that we see every day, for the most part, are driving us to think about ourselves in the face of white supremacy. So we need images in television, in books, certainly, on the radio, wherever we look, that show Black people just living their lives in all kinds of walks of life. And I think that's also what makes the difference. You know, we really need to proliferate and see who we are as a people. And I think Black people need to see ourselves in just a regular day, but white people need to understand too that, you know, yes, we have to deal with racism, but we're also regular people that just live a life.
And Tanya, I was reading that you said you have real conversations. You guys have real conversations with your children. How is it? Tell us about that. I mean, what kind of conversations can we have with our children when we see George Floyd's neck pressed against the ground? Jacqueline and Chelsea, I want you guys to chime in too. But Tanya, you said you have real conversations with your children.
Well, I mean, my children are older now, but even when they were young, when my children were young, I started talking to them about who we are and where we've come from. From the time when they were 4 or 5 years old, I talked about the fact that their ancestors were brought here from Africa across slave ships. And we talked about the fact that, what does that mean? That was us in the slave ship. It wasn't some person far, far away. Think about how you would feel in that situation. And yet we persevered and we survived. And now here you are, we've caught up to people. I mean, my kids went to school with some people whose parents, great-grandparents started the stock exchange. So think about your power in that. It's a power in your survival. You are strong in that you are still here and you're competing, you're catching up. We talk about humanity. What does it mean to be a human being? What does it mean to treat fellow human beings a certain way? What kind of person can put their neck on another human being with their hand in their pocket? What is wrong with that person? What is the disease of white supremacy as a disease? And really talking about it from that perspective, flip the script a little bit.
Right.
In terms of, what does it mean to truly be a human being and to treat others as human beings?
Thank you.
Yeah, amen. I mean, I also think too, I would just say, you know, we, I loathe tolerance. I should just put that out there. Like, I think you tolerate if you get a cold or you have like seasonal allergies. Like, I'm wearing glasses right now because I have a sty in my eye and it's like annoying the crap out of me. And like, I tolerate that. Like, you don't tolerate another person. You respect another person.
Yes.
Right.
And I think that is something that my kids who are, 5 and 3, my son Jasper's 10 months old. So, I mean, I don't really know what he's absorbing, but I think he is absorbing something because we talk about the importance of respect and dignity, because you do not tolerate another person, you respect every person.
Wow. Yeah. Dr. King, she sounds like you, Jacqueline.
Yeah, I say that all the time. I don't. I never like the word tolerate.
Yeah,
I don't like that
we're
word.
just gonna put up with. No, we need to understand, and then we respect. Even when we may not agree with something, we still have to seek to
Yes, ma'am.
understand and give the respect, because we are all due respect.
Yeah. So, Jacqueline, I have a question. You said, you were talking to President Carter back in 2015, and you said to him that you were taught not to run in white neighborhoods. What did it mean to you when you saw the video of Ahmaud Arbery running through a neighborhood? What did that speak to you? And you were taught that, years ago. What does it say now in 2020?
It says the same thing it said when I was a child, in the 70s and 80s, that even though we've shifted, there's still so many ways in which our country has work to do. I actually didn't watch the video. I haven't watched any of the videos. I've been doing a lot of self-care around that kind of visual stuff just because of who I am. But when I was told that as a young person, I knew I was being told it because my mom wanted us to be kept alive. And, we were of the Great Migration. We came to New York from South Carolina, and she grew up in Jim Crow, and she knew ways in which to keep her Black kids alive. And it never made me feel like it was my problem. It like Tanya said, it made me feel like it was their problem that they didn't know how to behave. And I think even now when I talk to my kids who are 12 and 18 about what's about our history, it's the same thing. It's like, we came to this country and we were not meant to survive, and we survived anyway, and we became doctors and lawyers and teachers and librarians and writers and actors and presidents, and that says something about the power of who we are. My kids are like, "Mommy, you're so conceited." I'm like, "No, I'm convinced." Like, there is a way in which the deep strength that we have is what has always kept us here. And it is, in terms of talking about race, we've been doing this from the womb because it's about survival for us, and there is no way to not talk about it. We wouldn't have anything to talk about, and also we wouldn't be raising human beings who knew how to move through the world in a certain way and still feel proud and still feel safe and still feel loved.
Wow.
But it's hard. It's hard. I mean, Jacqueline, with a Black son, my son's now 23 years old. And I will tell you, it's like I try not to be irrational, but if there are times when, and he knows, if I don't hear from him, I do hit panic, and it's very real. And I try to get like my head together, like, Tanya, I'm sure he's fine. But there have been, those moments where you fear for your son, and I don't want to put that on him either. Right. So there's a balance. Like, I don't want him to feel like he has to worry all the time that I'm so worried about him. I don't want him to have to worry all the time. But on the other hand, I want to protect him so that he lives. And that's real.
So that's very real, and it's so important that we continue this work, this anti-racism work, this dismantling of white supremacy, and creating a different kind of society. And I just want to ask each one of you, how do we ensure that we really continue and that there's accountability? Because right now, a lot of people are saying Black Lives Matter, they're posting Black Lives Matter, but it's one thing to verbalize, but how do we really actualize? How do we in the marketplace? We do the work in the homes, but how do we push it out into the various sectors of society? You mentioned multimedia, the publishing industry, and ensuring that there's more of a balance and that people can hear the real stories about Black lives. I mean, what is that? What does continuation look like right now?
Well, for me, it definitely means continuing to push against those boundaries. I mean, it's one thing for big corporations to finally post Black Lives Matter, which, only a few years ago was considered a terrorist organization, right? It's another thing for them to take that, to go beyond that post and put those corporate dollars into the movements and put them into creating change. And I'm going to push against publishing the way I've always pushed against publishing. And I think what this movement is saying is that it's not a moment. This is a movement, and it's going to keep on. And young people are mad, or old people are mad, and it's going to keep on until real change happens. So until systemic change happens and structural change happens, and we have to keep speaking out and keep pushing against it and keep putting our dollars where they should go, into, Black bookstores and Black-owned businesses, to show the power that we have to create greater and longer-lasting change.
Wouldn't it just be wonderful if more white people would put money into these Black bookstores?
Yeah,
I think
that's when we know things are changing.
Like,
and becoming patrons of those stores as well.
Yes. Well, and I would just say, Dr. King, I think that, everything that Jacqueline said, I'm like, emphatically, committed to amplifying and doing whatever I can with her to push our publisher to continue to, prioritize, writers of color, especially Black women, candidly, and especially to tell the stories of Black girls. It matters to me that, like, my white son, who's 3.5, hero at the moment is Katherine Johnson. He can't believe she skipped 3 grades, and he says, like, I want to be smart like her. Like, I think that matters.
Yes.
And so Dr. King, when you talk about, like, what are we going to do, like, we have to keep having these conversations every day in our homes, and then we have to keep holding our public officials accountable, and we have to vote. And we have to take our kids with us to vote. And then we have to hold our public officials accountable again, because it matters what happened in Minneapolis today, with the veto-proof majority of the city council saying they were going to reimagine their entire criminal justice system, kind of from police on down. Like, that would have been unimaginable a couple weeks ago until activists pushed to make it not only imaginable but possible. So I just think we have to your point, it's like not a moment, it's a movement, but it has to be a movement in our homes every day, and then we have to keep showing up in every way, wherever we can.
Tanya?
And white people, I'm talking to you, mainly.
Serious. Chelsea.
And we thank you, Chelsea. Thank you. That's
like,
right.
Come on.
And like piggybacking on that, right? It's all hands on deck. The bottom line. It's all hands on deck in every industry, in every way. My father was a corporate guy who came into corporate America when they began to desegregate. He was on the first wave of that. And because he was one of the first Blacks in corporate America, he was able, in finance no less, he was able to open things up and help some of the guys who are now investment bankers here, right? So we need to make sure there are places where Black people can be in positions of power, the gatekeepers. I think about Hollywood. We need Hollywood gatekeepers who can greenlight films and TV shows, and we're getting there slowly but surely. We need more of that. We need publishers who are Black people who are in positions of power at publishing houses who can get books made. We need people in the health and medical field who are looking out for our health, because health equity is a huge issue.
Absolutely.
I mean, we haven't even talked about the impact on our health. So, I mean, all hands on deck in every industry across the board. We need to see, and as Black people, I mean, it's hard working in corporate America. I can't do it, but we need people there to do those jobs. So all of us, white people, need to open the doors a little bit. We need to go in there, and we all need to be working together to make sure that our representation is what it should be.
Absolutely.
Wow. Well, thank you all for sharing your heart, your soul, and for the work that you are continuing to do in this arena. And we all, as you said, hands on deck, and have to step it up even more. But this is a watershed moment, as you know, in our nation. And I believe that we're going to see major changes and shifts And one of the things I'm going to ask you a favor with those publishers, because invariably as an African American writer and author, when you go in those doors, they always are trying to find who is your target audience. And they want to say, as a Black person, your target audience is Black audience. It's time for some equal exchange.
Yeah.
Our voices, our writings, our stories need to go into white communities, because if those changes are going to happen, it's not going to happen by us in our community knowing our story. That's essential and necessary. But it's also when the white community and the Hispanic and the Asian community and all communities begin to know the true rich story of Black people in America. And so thank you all again for your wonderful work and joining us on tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much,
Thank you
Dr.
for
Reed.
having
Thank you
this
so much for having
platform
us.
and having
Thank
us
you.
here. This is great.
Thank you. God
Thank
bless.
you so much. God bless you.
God bless. Take
God
care.
bless. Take care.
Wow.
So Benita, wow,
I know.
women.
Yeah,
Women
look,
are
we had.
stepping up.
Wait a minute,
Women are
voila!
stepping up.
Dr. King,
Voila,
Kim is
women-
here.
I know. Women are stepping up, and you and I have the benefit of working at the King Center, the institution that a woman founded. My mother founded it as the official living memorial to the life, work, and legacy of my father. And we wouldn't know Dr. King and his iconic state if it were not for Coretta Scott King. And she said something so powerful that we just kind of want to reflect on the next few minutes in this segment where we're talking about women, the soul of a nation. She said, women, if the soul of the nation is to be saved, I believe you must become its soul. And I know, Benita, you were getting ready to say something about that.
No, I was just saying, Kim is here, so she's in our.
Kim Fields is here.
Kim
Those
Fields
of
is
us
here.
in our age group, we remember Tootie on
Tootie.
Facts of Life.
Facts of Life,
remember, yeah. We remember Regine on Living Single. You also recently, in recent times, had an opportunity to be arrested with my brother, Martin III, during your protest dealing with 19-year-old Taisha Miller, who was murdered by 4. Listen to that. It was 4 this case too, even though they weren't directly putting their knee on. So 2 of them were actually adding some pressure, but 4 police officers who were not charged, neither arrested. So thank you, sister, for your sacrifice and for your voice and activism in this struggle. And I don't know if is Perry going to be joining us as well?
Yes, Perry should be joining us. Is Perry here? There she is, and there she is. Oh, there she goes. And
I'm coming back and forth.
Okay.
All right.
Hi.
So Perry, go ahead, Dr.
Benita.
King.
Just listening.
Go ahead, Perry Gilpin. So Perry is an amazing actress, one of my favorites on Cheers, and Perry's also been doing some tremendous work with breast cancer. So welcome here on our forum, online protest, for those who are sheltering in place and those who couldn't do like Kim and hit the streets. And so this is the purpose of this platform. So welcome, ladies, to
Thank you.
Our online protest.
Thank you. It's great to be here, and great to, kudos to you for having this. So thank you, and to the team that people don't get to see behind the scenes.
Woo!
Making this happen.
Yes. It's a lot.
It takes a lot of work. It's a lot of coordination, isn't it?
It's a lot of coordination. It's a lot of sleepless nights and
I think maybe only women could do it,
Absolutely,
That takes me back to the statement. I don't know if you got a chance to hear it, Perry, but I said my mother made a statement that women, if the soul of the nation is to be saved, I believe you must become its soul. So in light of where we are right now, and I won't even say just in our nation, in our world, because these are revolutionary times all over the world.
Yes.
How does that statement speak to you all now in terms of women and the role and responsibility in this hour? Just want to hear your reflections on that.
As a mom of 2 boys of color, I am married to a man of color. I am a sister to men of color. My sisters are married. I am a coworker. I am a colleague. I am a friend. And so this is such. We've never seen a time like this. Like you said, Bernice, or excuse me, I'm sorry. I know I should call you Dr. King, but you're my sister, Bernice. So,
Yes.
but this is what your mom said was so prolific, and it really does speak to the grace that women are given, but completely underscored by all of our power. And that to me is really what soul is. And when you think about us being the soul of a nation or of a world, you know, that sort of thing. And what we pour into, even the Bible says, we will make, daughters, you will make your sons kings and princes. And so we understand our position. And our responsibilities. And at the same time, like Jacqueline so eloquently said, you've got to also realize you've got to do some self-care and self-preservation yourself so that you can pour into those that are depending on you to help be that soul.
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Perry, what are your thoughts?
Well, I saw a post, actually. I don't know who, I can't remember where it came from, and I don't know who originally wrote it. It was written in spray paint on a wall here in LA, I think, and it said, when George Floyd called for his mama, he summoned all the mothers.
Woo!
And I felt
Wow.
that from the very first second. And I've been feeling that way for a long time. I just feel like if we had more leaders who were coming from a place that a mom comes from, that things would be a lot different.
Wow.
So, go ahead, Kim. You're about to say something.
I'm just breathing.
Yeah.
I just had to breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, we've been talking about this work of becoming allies, you know, white people becoming allies to black people. But I heard Cuomo, I think, said something a little different. He said, we need to get beyond allies. We need to become family. So what do we do? Why are you smiling, Kim?
Because I love Governor Cuomo.
I know, me too. Yay,
Listen, I mean, I am New York strong. I am not there at the moment, but you know, but just his leadership. But yes, you were saying.
Yeah. So how do we begin to learn to step beyond just being an ally, but you getting to know me? To Dr. King's point, if we're going to become the soul of the nation, you've got to get to know my being, to get in this work with me, to get integrated into this work with me. So how do we get beyond just being an ally? Because you know, allies go in and out, and sooner or later, an ally can become an enemy at convenience.
I
if
like
you're not,
the word advocate.
Yeah.
Advocate for social justice and for, you know, Benita, I think you said this the other day, that white supremacy and injustice is not just a black problem. It's all of our problems. So we have to be an advocate for justice and peace. And there was this...
I'm so sorry, baby girl. I'm sorry, sis.
No.
My bad. Go ahead,
I will
sis.
never stop talking.
Please, I'm sorry.
A friend of mine just put this up that she said that she was making a commitment, and it's called 5 times 52. And she said she was going to commit to posting, protesting, donating, signing petitions, reading, watching, educating 5 hours a week, every week. And she said, I don't know if that's enough, but I'm committing to doing that. And I think it takes that kind of commitment from all of us, that it has to be a priority. It has to be a priority.
I understand that, and I there's value to me in everyone's work and everyone's effort. Absolutely. But I don't know when we lost, that's not true, Kim, shut up. You do know when you lost sight of this, but we're a human race.
Right.
And so the idea of family, because we are all part of the same species, species. I mean,
Right.
my 13-year-old is a junior scientist on certain levels, and the things that how he correlates and connects things. I definitely learned from, and how to put certain framework around certain concepts and things in order to engage with him. And we're the same species. And so if we are humanity, if we are the human race, then that's the family. And so there's certainly, like you guys were talking about in the previous segment, there's no tolerating. Better get out of here with that. But there is that sense of embrace. There is that, Bernice said it so beautifully, even if we don't agree, because hello, we don't always agree with the people that we related to on the real tip.
Right.
So we are able to, hi South Africa, we are able to understand one another and hear one another. Bernice, you guys remember Mama Chase, Leah Chase, and Dookie Chase restaurant?
Yes.
In New Orleans, and Mama Chase was a huge. Mama Chase and your daddy were family. Dookie Chase, Mama Chase, your mom and dad, all of them. And one thing that Mama Chase said that has really been resonating with me recently was her talking about people didn't listen, and that they used their restaurant and gumbo and fried chicken to help change the course of history. And that people would be able to come together and be able to sit and talk and listen and plan and strategize how to have an impact, how to change the course of history and the world, and really understand one another. And those to me are the things that, when you get back to what we do as women, as moms, now here's the other piece for me as a mom, my kids understand consequences. Mm-hmm. That to me has been missing in this narrative for a good long minute. Yeah. The consequences of what you know is wrong, and the degree of the consequences that has to be addressed. So yes, kudos to you, Minneapolis, for what you're doing and everything with your policies and your laws and the expeditious way in which you are knocking these down and changing your own course of history. Yes. But come on, family, we got to do better with consequences. We moms, we understand that. But my 6-year-old knows if he does something crazy, consequences.
That's right. Consequences.
So
no one is immune. We have to understand that no one is immune. Right. And I think we've created this total immunity in our police departments across this nation, that they can just do any and everything. But now that will change. I really believe that. Now, it's not going to do it overnight.
No.
But the strides that they are making in Minneapolis is setting a standard that we need to be looking at, watching, and following their lead. So I know, Benita, you were getting ready to ask something.
Yeah, I was going to ask Perry a question. We have this mutual associate, Dr. King and I, and she's a white young lady. And she said one of the things, she asked me, Benita, what bothers you the most? And I said, penetrating silence from white people who are my friends or people I know who should speak up when things are not just, or things that are unfair with Black people, and you're silent. So she said to me that as a white woman, sometimes she finds herself lamenting because if she does, she has to answer to friends and colleagues. And so can you tell me, as a white woman, how do you in this moment now dare and challenge your friends to not be complicit when you see injustice and racism at the forefront? And are you afraid to have those conversations?
I'm not afraid to have them at all.
Yeah, because you're on here, right? Okay.
I also really firmly believe that after what we've seen on TV for the last couple of weeks with Ahmaud Arbery, and what we've learned about Breonna Taylor and what we saw George Floyd go through, all you have to do is look at it. All you have to do is make yourself watch it. There's nothing to argue about anymore, and you can't be silent anymore, and you can't act like it's not happening anymore. So or act like you don't understand it. It's just as blatant as it can be. So I feel like like I've learned once, or talked twice with boyfriends, it was like, just because I have a problem doesn't mean they have a problem, and I think if everybody can understand that this is all of our problem.
And so I want to ask this other question. Why do you think this was the moment? Because this, for us, it's always been the moment. I mean, we've lived with this all of our lives. And I guess I'm asking for Perry as a white person. It's like, wow, we've been saying this is a problem for so long. We've had other videos. We had Eric Garner, but no one paid attention. But this has stirred the soul of America, and now has white people examining their responsibility for dismantling racism.
I think it's the perfect storm of everyone of COVID-19. Everyone's in their home. We're not distracted by a lot of things. We're all watching things. It got our attention because our attention was on it. But then what we saw was, the nonchalance, the hand in the pocket, the complete disconnect of what was happening, and then everything since. And it was on the heels of the other two things that we were becoming more and more aware of. So it was like how things come in threes, I guess,
Right.
But I think mainly because we were all so focused. I think it was the focus was on it. So we have to keep our focus. And I think that's another thing. We've had to condition ourselves to go out in the world and not contract this virus. So we've learned to do that in the past couple of months. We've learned to live differently. So we're all practiced. We can do that again now. We can use those same tools we had to use to condition ourselves to stay healthy, to change this.
So I want to ask you about accountability as we close this segment, because when the protests dissipate, when the television cameras have moved on to something else, how are we going to hold people accountable to remain committed to this soul-stirring, very challenging but necessary work to fulfill the promises that America made to all of its people, but especially those of us in the Black community? How do we make sure that these things really materialize?
Right. One of the things that I've been looking at, and sis, when you did the intro with me and you talked about Martin III and I marching and protesting, that was 21 years ago, family. That was 21 years ago. And thank God so much has happened and changed, and we've got more tools. But everyone has a voice, everyone has a microphone, everyone has a platform now with their social media first and foremost. Everyone has a sense of community that they can grow and nurture with these conversations without feeling like you always have to be confrontational, because the awareness is heightened right now. But I feel like, somebody said, well, what about as moms? What can we do? Yes, we can have certain conversations, but you can lead by example. I'm going to need you to loosen up them reins on your entitlement vibe. I'm going to need you to lead by example and see that people are people that you can see. Some folks ain't invisible just because of the color of their skin or because of their what you perceive to be as their financial or economic status. Again, we're all human beings. So why don't you come up off of that sense of entitlement and be able to just say hi and wave, and that way your children see you. Lead by example with some of the interaction that you have, human to human, person to person.
Thank you. Perry?
Well,
and vote.
Absolutely.
And Kim, you're so right. It's not what you say, it's what you do, right? It's what you do in front of them and how you behave, and the example you set, and what you say in their presence, but also what you do. And whether it's in front of them or not. But I wanted to say one other thing. There's all of these books, and you were saying them the other day, Benita and Dr. King. You were both talking about books, How to Be Anti-Racist, The New Jim Crow, Where Do We Go From Here, of course, Chaos or Community, The Color of Law, and there's Wes Moore has a new book called 5 Days, and I read this book to my kids a lot. Did you guys ever know about this book, Priscilla and the Hollyhocks?
Oh, I did.
It's an interesting story, and I also love this woman very much, Miss Burton here in Los Angeles, who started a new way of life. But you can learn about all these things online, like you said, but also there's a great show called Fresh Air on NPR, which I love. And all of these books, the authors have had long interviews with Terry Gross or Dave Davies and delved deeply into their books. And you can hear it on the radio, on your podcast. And it's a great way to just have deep dives into these topics while you're driving or walking or just in your time, and then you can have conversations with people that are educated. Like I can, because I may not know the world, but I can hear these people talking about it, and I can learn more.
Thank you so much. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for sharing with us. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the heart and soul of what is happening right now are our young people. They are making us proud in so many ways, and we have 3 of them with us tonight. Benita, if you just introduce them real quick.
Yes, Monique Coleman. She's an actress, a singer, dancer, entrepreneur. We have Jose Chan, I want to say it right, Chanchez. We had you going all kind of way while we were communicating with you, but I remember him from the game. And then of course we have none other than Caitlin Worth, who's a Canadian actor and writer and producer. Welcome, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for doing this. It's such an important thing.
Well, this is a changing the world moment. I mean, young people are they're doing it. They, and they always have, from Dr. King's father to, what's happening right now in the streets. So tell me, as young people and influencers, what does this time and moment mean for you?
I'll start if you guys are okay with that.
Of course.
Ladies first.
Thank you. This is a really profound time, and I'm so grateful to see all of the passion and energy and action behind this movement. And as someone who has just studied the Dr. King's family and just loves this movement so much, I think it's also really important that we recognize how this impacts young people from the standpoint of trauma and from the standpoint of carrying it as a burden as opposed to a source of empowerment and real change. And that's something that I think this generation, we are charged, to really make sure that we disseminate this information in a way that is sustainable and isn't just happening in the moment and we're excited and we're passionate, but that we are really here for the long haul. And I think social media is an incredible tool to be able to carry out messages and to be able to share information, but it also has a lot of limitations when we don't have proper leadership like we do here with the online protests. So that is something that I think is really needed, is your voices coming forward and really bridging that gap. We need an intergenerational bridge to help us understand how to take the processes and the strategy and the real action and really take that and apply that to the technology and the speed and the way that we're able to get that message out quickly. And that's something that I recognize and wanted to bring forward, is I see a kind of a need for that.
Oh, thank you, Monique. Guys, there you go. You probably should have gone first, right? Okay.
Well, Monique, that's actually what you said. For me at this time about trauma is one of the most important things that we must talk about in individuals' lives. Yeah. We are experiencing mass trauma, a massive amount of trauma in a short amount of time. not just with COVID, but obviously what's happening to our Black and brown brothers in the streets. We are all in a state of grief. It's a perpetual state of grief and mourning. I find myself, and not to make this about me, but I know if it's hard for me, because I'm usually really focused. I'm a very focused individual. And I found myself not being able to sleep at night, to read a book. And I usually read a few books a month. It's hard for me to center my energy. So I think what you said, for me as a young person, I am definitely an advocate for making sure that people handle themselves and their trauma and their children's trauma and friends' trauma in a proper way.
Wow.
Another thing that I think we have to shine a light on is making people accountable to themselves at this time. We spend a lot of time protesting for other people. I've spent the first week and a half, I really only thought about George Floyd and the injustice that happened to him and my other Black brothers in the streets. But I never really thought about it in the context of me. I didn't think about myself. I didn't think about the trauma that I was experiencing, the fear, the doubt, the worthlessness that I've experienced in this. And when I say Black Lives Matter, somehow I never saw Hosea's face when I said Black Lives Matter.
Wow.
And a lot of us, we're on the front lines. We're fighting for an injustice and a cause and our people, but we need to fight for ourselves too.
Wow.
In this time. So
Wow.
Thank you for that. Caleb, you spent a lot of times really pushing this issue forward. And Caleb, you said to me, Benita, I don't want to go on. I want to make space for everyone else. But I told you it's very important for our white brothers and sisters to be a part of this conversation, because that's the only way it's going to move forward. So tell me what this hour means to you as well, Caleb.
Well, thank you for saying that. I'm so inspired by this next generation who are truly on the front lines demanding real change. They're passionate. They have the courage to speak truth to power. And so there's a responsibility. If you have someone who has a lot of people following, especially young people following you, you're called an influencer. But the question is, what are you influencing? Are you using your platform to make real change, or are you using it to influence your bank account? A lot of young people follow me, and I see this as an opportunity to educate, empower, and enable change. I'm not an expert, and I've never walked in your shoes, but I can walk with you, and I can support you, and I can learn from you, and I can do everything I can to help amplify your message.
Wow. Now y'all trying to make me cry on here.
I know. If I can just be frank with you, starting this conversation dealing with the whole trauma is something that, Benita and I talked about. I said, Benita, on this 7-day platform, we gotta deal with trauma, because the African-American community lives trauma. I mean, we're traumatized. We're born into trauma. We live trauma all the time. And the more that it builds up, the explosiveness is so much greater. And so I thank you for being conscious of that as young people. And I want to take this opportunity on behalf of people my age and older and apologize from really robbing you all from having the opportunity to grow up as young people without carrying so much burden and seeing so much. I mean, you all have had to witness so much in your what I call your eye gate, and hear so much in your ear gate that children should not have to hear. I mean, I was blessed to be shielded to a certain extent because I didn't see my father get shot. Malcolm X's children did see their father get shot. But we didn't have these constant images being placed right before us the way you all are having things, And we apologize because we didn't continue the movement that my father was cut down short from continuing, fighting to dismantle racism and these systemic systems that perpetuate racism. And now you are having the responsibility to do that, which is unfortunate. So I want to thank you all for what you're doing, and I'm sorry that we didn't do enough.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
We
That's
didn't
not
do
true.
enough.
No,
I have to
that's
stand
not
in the gap
that's
and
not
say
true.
that that's not true.
That is
We
not.
wouldn't be
No, I
here.
know my parents did enough, but those of
Oh,
us in the
no.
middle collectively didn't do enough. I did some things, I admit.
Yeah.
Benita and I had that conversation all the time. I
Yeah.
said, Benita, when you say our generation, I'm saying, Benita, I was out there when we were demonstrating against apartheid in South Africa. I've been a part of a lot of movements during my time, rallying for peace, and dealing with issues, confronting racism at my own school in Atlanta, Emory School of Law and Candler School of Theology at Emory, when I was there. So we've been dealing with these issues, but collectively there was an indifference. Collectively, people were just enjoying, I guess, what they thought were the fruits of the labor from the movement. And we didn't realize what my mother said. She said, a struggle is a never-ending process. Freedom is never really won. You earn it and win it in every generation. And that's what you all are doing.
Yeah.
That's what you all are doing.
So we have to wrap up, but I just want you guys to take 30 seconds. One thing that you are hopeful and prayerful that we take away in this hour, that we learn in this hour, that when the protests are gone, that we will not forget. Kayla.
It's okay to change your belief structure. It's okay to admit you were wrong. It's okay to learn and educate yourself, but it's not okay to ignore. And it's not okay to vote for politicians who perpetuate systemic racism. And it's not okay to be a part of this moment and not a part of a greater movement. This is a lifelong commitment.
Yes, it is.
Thank you, Kayla.
Yes.
I'm going to let the lady go last this time. So, Jose.
Bookend. I will say this. As we protest, as we march, as we fight for what we believe in, I'm talking to my black, brown, and white brothers and sisters. It is imperative that you drop down to your knees and you speak to your Father. It is absolutely, in my opinion, imperative that we not forget the power of prayer. We not discount the strength of our God who built the universe, the earth, you, me, everybody. It is imperative that we stay connected in prayer, because prayer changes things. Actions change things too. But we cannot forget how to, where to, and when to, at all times, drop down to your knees, give thanks to God, and ask the Father for the way. If you don't know how or what to do, He will provide these answers for you. So as you search the internet for answers, as you ask your parents, your peers, and your friends, it is imperative that you go to the Father and ask Him, Lord, what would you have me do? And I guarantee you, God will answer your prayer.
Wow.
I know
Monique?
we're pressed for time, so I'm just going to slide it in there and say that healing begins at home and bravery starts around the kitchen table, whatever that is to you. That most of the progress that we're going to be making are going to be conversations that no one will ever see. Do that work too. Don't let your fingers be the only thing that's doing the working. What you share publicly is nothing compared to changing one actual thought and sharing that thought. That's how we make generational change. And just thank you so much for this.
Wow. You guys have given
Thank
me
you.
just chills.
Yes.
I love you guys. You're
Love you.
amazing.
We love you
Truly
guys.
amazing.
Thank you very much.
You so
Thank
much.
you guys
God-
so much.
God bless
God
you.
bless
Thanks
you.
You know, Benita, one of the things that was a lot.
I know.
And
I'm like-
I appreciate these young people. They have really touched our heart and soul tonight. And when Hosea started talking about the knees, I want to remind people that the movement my father led was really a spiritual movement that impacted civil and human rights. We must never forget that, because those were some praying people in that movement.
Yes.
And they knew the importance of doing that and allowing God's super to apply to their natural. So here we are. I had a wonderful conversation, as you know, a couple of days ago with Ellen DeGeneres, and she decided she wanted to join us tonight on this platform, and I really appreciate her coming on. She's on a quest to really learn now, and so we want to invite her now. All of us know Ellen. We see her every night, every day, should I say,
Every day.
during the day with her talk show, and we appreciate what she's doing right now, and and offering her platform for people to learn and to make adjustments. So Ellen, welcome, and thank you for coming on tonight. We appreciate you.
How you
It's an honor.
doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much. It's an honor for me to be a part of this. By the way, you can watch at night. You can record during the day and watch at night. You can watch any time of day. There's not
24/7. She's available 24/7. I want to ask you a question because
yes,
you know, you were recently challenged on the use of the description people of color, and I know, you know, it's a difficult time because people use all different terminology when referring to the African American community, but you were challenged on using it instead of Black people, which led to you saying that you wanted to learn and be a better person. Why was it important for you to own this? Because that's part of the issue now, people owning things. So why was it important for you to do that?
well, my entire life, I hope that I continue to learn and be a better person. And, you know, I think that a lot of white people are, for a while, were like, okay, do we say African American? Do we say Black? Do we say people of color? And when I say people of color, it's usually because I mean, you know, all the different colors of people out there. That's not just Black people, it's brown people, it's, you know, it's white people. And so I don't think that, I obviously didn't mean it in any way that was disrespectful. I just think that most white people don't really know exactly the right term. And I will always own if I do something wrong or say something wrong, that's how you learn. And I think we're at a moment of time where there are so many mistakes that we have made as a white race. I mean, just listening to the term white supremacy as it would somehow apply to me. I mean, I've always looked at white supremacists as KKK. I've always thought that white supremacists were people that were racist. And, you know, so I'm learning that I have benefited just by being white. So I am part of the white supremacy, but that's brand new to me. You know, I grew up in the South, and I grew up with segregation and then integration. You know, I grew up as a gay person trying to, you know, fight discrimination in my own way. And so I've always felt I'm on the right side of history. I've always felt that I'm fighting for people that aren't heard or don't feel that they're understood. And I haven't done it obviously right. I haven't done it 100%, you know, and so now that is, and the question was raised a little while ago, what do we do to make sure when these protests stop, how do we keep this going? And I promise that, you know, I have 2 more years in my contract on my show, and my show is now a platform for this conversation to continue, and it won't stop.
Wow.
I will continue to talk about this and change. I mean, I still want to entertain people and make people laugh and make people happy. But I used to say I was a distraction. I used to say the world is a scary place. It's a bad place. I want for an hour for you to come to me and forget what's going on. Well, I don't want people to forget what's going on anymore. I want people to know that for 400 years, we have committed a horrible crime, and it is time to fight for the next. If it takes 400 years, we will not stop. I was on a Zoom earlier today with Breonna Taylor's mother and family and a bunch of powerful women, and we're talking about how, you know, that just was swept under the rug, and this now needs to be addressed.
Yes,
Those cops need to be, you know, arrested, and we need to get rid of. I saw a question come up that, you know, how do you take the racism out of a policeman? It's like you just take the policeman out of the force. If he's a racist, he's not a policeman. That's not fighting for and protecting people.
Right. Yes, that's the most dangerous place for them to be. You know, the entertainment arena is so important to where we are right now, using these multimedia platforms. So, you know, I really want to thank you for making that commitment to use that platform. And one of the things that, you know, I think we have to continue to push is how do we get people to move from I said it early, just the verbalization of Black Lives Matter to the actualization of Black Lives Matter, and advocating for the rights of Black people in this time.
Well, I think we vote. I think a lot of people blame Trump for this, and I think we have to start. Trump wouldn't be in if this didn't exist. If these people weren't already out there that felt this way. So we have to start at the local levels and start putting people in a position of power that don't allow this kind of systemic racism to continue, because it starts grassroots. And then, I mean, even if we make a change, if the president changes, if we don't change all the local levels, that person can't do anything. So I think that, it starts with just all of us, first of all, making a decision that we're going to educate ourselves if we aren't feeling like we are. I mean, I've said that Ava DuVernay's 13th documentary is a history lesson for any white person that needs to be reminded of what's happened. And other than that, I don't know. I think that I know what I can do, and I know that I want to give a platform when we go back on the air in September to constantly have these conversations and talk to people who don't understand Black Lives Matter, that they think that all lives matter. They need to know why that's wrong. They need to understand why it's not about all lives matter. Yes, all lives matter. But I think it's just a conversation.
Right. So, Ellen, what do you say to those who still remain silent? Because we're surrounded by people who sometimes just remain just complicit about things. And I was asking this to Perry. What do you say to your friends when they're seeing this injustice and they're still not speaking? What do you say to them?
I can't say any. I mean, how do you? I wish there were people that I reached out to that I wanted to have on the show, and a lot of people. I think everyone right now, and this happened actually before this entire movement. Everyone is so scared to say anything anymore. There are people that you just get attacked for anything and everything. And,
true.
I said something that I didn't know was wrong, and I get attacked, and it's like, okay, then teach me. I said the wrong thing, but it's like, if you stay silent, you're never going to learn, and you're not going to be a part of the solution. You're just, silence is not the way to go at this point. It is way, way too late for that. So, but yeah, it makes me sad for people that aren't talking, but they're scared because there's so much hate out there. There's so much judgment. And I have to, Dr. King, you were saying that why do people think that it's now? Why do people think, because you've always felt like now's the time. I had Ava DuVernay on the show, and she was so articulate. She basically said, because she's a director and she sees things in such a visual way, it was the framing of seeing those two men. It wasn't gritty, body cam footage. It wasn't from far away from someone. It was right there, and you saw a man on another man's neck, and you saw him with his hand in his pocket, taking a life, and you saw that other man's life slowly leave his body. And I think it's so powerful. You can't look at that. And not that, and then it does remind you, like, I mean, I thought Ahmaud Arbery was like, that was enough. Shooting a man who's jogging down the street, I thought that would have been, and yet there was not an uprising. Breonna Taylor, all the names that we could, but for whatever reason, George Floyd is going to go down in history as the man who sparked this revolution,
and as his daughter said, change the world.
And
it's interesting she used that. She didn't say change this nation, because literally all across this world, people are standing up and speaking about Black lives. Many of those in Australia dealing with Indigenous people and their rights, and they're recognizing them. This is a worldwide moment for us to get it right. And I'm going to say something. My father said to us in '67 in his book, where do we go from here? Chaos of Community, that we must learn how to live together as brothers and sisters, or together we will perish as fools. And so what you're saying is so right on. This is a learning curve in so many regards. And we can't get there if we don't give room and space to the learning, for the awkwardness. And I know that many of us are fed up. It's like, we've been teaching you all along, because there's so many people that have been in different spaces with white people. And it's like, because many of those people weren't getting it, when this other one comes along and says that, it's like exasperation. How many more do I have to teach? But at the end of the day, you're right. We've got to learn. And people like you, which you have done, have said, teach me.
Yeah.
So I want my Black brothers and sisters to hear that. Those who are exasperated, I get it. I'm exasperated. I've been working with some white folks too, and it's like, God, why are you still analyzing this? You know, but at the end of the day, if we don't teach them, we won't get to where we're trying to get, because we need everybody to make a difference in dismantling white supremacy. People sit in different seats of influence and authority and spaces. And we need everybody in this struggle to fight the thing that is destroying us as a nation. Original sin of racism, as most people say, our true pandemic right now of racism, has to be dealt once and for all, a final blow.
Yes.
So,
yes. I agree. And I just have to say about that, about learning and teaching. I mean, it must be exhausting. And so I want to learn. I don't want to keep learning over. I mean, but I guess I hope to the rest of my life, but I want to learn how to be a leader. I want you to help me, you know, on my show, help other people. And, you know, and also, you know, because I have heard a lot of Black people say people of color. So I thought that is the phrase. So when I hear a Black person say people of color, I'm thinking that's the right thing to say. But, you know, it's you know, different, I guess, for me to say than a Black person. It's like, okay, I didn't know that. And I just was being inclusive.
Yeah. So you just, next time you say, hey, can I just ask you, what color are you talking about right now? You know, seriously. Yeah. I mean, you have to have Black friends that you can ask the real questions to, where you have this thing that you can be brave. We keep talking about creating these safe spaces. We have to have courageous spaces right now, you know, because I'm looking at you and the tears, and I'm just, you know, I am so grateful for you just wanting to be open. And I told one of my colleagues, I said, you know, it's kind of like, and you may not know anything about the mourner's bench. Do you know what a mourner's bench is, Ellen?
No. Sorry. Should I?
That's okay.
No,
so a mourner's,
me. What's a mourner's? What is it?
Yeah, so a mourner's bench in the old Baptist church, you would get on the mourner's bench and you would have to make a decision about God. And so you would get up when you were ready. And when you got up, people were happy because you were awakened. And so I was saying to one of my friends, I said,
Benita, wait a minute. You have to until you awaken.
Yeah. If you got up and said something dumb, they'll make you sit back down and say, oh, you're not ready. So,
all right.
So when people are ready, we have to welcome them into the family. And that's all I'm saying. Because like you said, Dr. King, we have to learn to live together as brothers and sisters. You know, your father said, we'll perish together as fools. And so when people are waking up, you know, we do have to say, okay, you're awoke. You woke right now. So you're awakened right now. So come on into the family, because we are brothers and sisters. We are brothers and sisters. And so we appreciate you, Ellen, for all that you're doing. And Dr. King?
And the next stage in the awakening is, what do I need to do to create justice and equity in this society for Black people? Because when you look across the gamut, we're still the last. You know, we're the last. And that's problematic. And that has to change in America.
We need to support, and I posted something on EllenTube on my website. If you go to my website, books people can read, ways for people to educate themselves. So that's one thing that we can do. And then, I am here, and I am happy to continue to learn, and help me, tell me what I can do, because I'm here, I'm ready, I'm open to any suggestion, and I support you, and I commit to that.
Thank you, Ellen. We appreciate you and appreciate everything you're doing right now with this difficult time period in our society.
Yes. Thank you
Have a
so
good
much.
evening. Thank you so much.
Love
God
y'all.
bless.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Love you.
too,
Love
Ellen.
you too.
Love you too.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
So, guys, we ran out of time. And we want to thank you. This has been a very moving day for us. We've had tears. We've had laughter. We've had moments that just really touch deep into our souls. And now is the time for us to make a difference and not just say it as a cliche, but to really step up and change the landscape for African Americans, Black people throughout the world, the Black diaspora. So thank you for joining us again. Thank you, Bonita, for being with me until the end tonight. And we will see you all on tonight. Please sign that the online petition. We're still trying to ban the chokehold.
So
we do have another segment.
Yeah, I was like, I was typing in the chat real quick. So we wanted to bring out a dear friend of yours, Dr. King, the person responsible for this amazing artwork that you see. She created this, the art that you see. We've been sending it out, the flag with "I Can't Breathe." Drew Katoka. Drew Katoka. Drew Katoka.
Drew.
Yeah.
So
where's
Drew? There's Drew.
Hey, Drew.
Hey, Drew, your mic's on mute.
I'm sorry. Oh, hello, Bonita.
Hey.
Hello, Dr. King.
Hello, Drew.
Thank you so much. Dr. King, you are an extraordinary woman. You're a woman of vision. You're a humanitarian. You're a woman of an exceptional spirit. You're a woman of faith. And you're one of the people who I so deeply admire in the world today. And I really wanted to tell you that you've been a light. You've been a light in my life for the last 20 years, from the first day I met you when I was at Stanford at the Millennial Celebration for your father, where I created a painting for that occasion. And to just tell you where I'm coming from, I want to share with you that over many years, I feel I have been blessed to have been mentored by some incredible African-American cultural figures and intellectuals like Wynton Marsalis and Albert Murray. And as an artist and as a biracial woman of two races, I feel a deep indebtedness and gratitude to African-American culture and everything that it's brought to my life and how it's shaped me as a person. And like everybody, I've been watching the news nonstop, and like every normal human, I've been bothered, I've been shaken, I've been disgusted. This cannot be happening today. And while the news media keeps broadcasting this kind of, I call it riot porn of the burning cars, just to maximize eyeballs and advertising dollars, we need to take action, So last Friday, I couldn't sleep much either. And I kept thinking, and as you know, on Saturday morning, I texted you, Dr. King, and I said, how about an online protest for everybody who can't join the city protests due to medical conditions or distance and all those people who have been left out? And you responded in 12 minutes, and you said, you texted back, let's do it. And so together, you and I, with Bonita, the amazing Bonita Hampton-Smith, quickly came up with a plan and started the protest 3 days later. And I wanted to share that my team and I, we did have a large project going on that was also social good focused, and we stopped it, and we stopped everything, and we started working full time on online protests. And I told my team, right now, nothing else matters. Nothing in the world. Everything loses its meaning. We cannot build, we cannot create, we cannot work, we cannot go on with our lives until this gets expressed. And
you've been doing just that, Drew. You've been like, we've been on 3 o'clock in the morning. Drew's texting me, I'm like, does Drew ever sleep? Like, so Drew,
she's on the West Coast though.
Yeah. That's
Well,
a
you,
cheat.
you guys go to bed earlier, but then I have to get up earlier. So
Yeah, she is up at the crack of dawn. But Drew, can you share with us the what when you created this graphic? Because I told you when I saw it, I know people say it's a flag, but when I looked at it, it really spoke to me. Because you had the words "I can't breathe" just interwoven in there. And I said, wow, this country is one breath, It's a
Yes.
collective breath of all of us. But I don't want to share my interpretation because I was really moved by it.
I
But
remember when you and I were first talking about it, and you shared your interpretation,
Yeah.
and that was deeply meaningful. And that is where the art lives, is in the interpretations. It's not my singular statement. It's an ever evolving living organism. But this is the role of art. And this is really the role of any sane human being, is to drive change. And I really did. I created this work pretty quickly because we kind of had a lot of time pressure, and it was another one of those sleepless nights on Saturday to create this artistic response with the flag, with the words "I can't breathe." And those are really, for me, those are the words of George Floyd, but they're also the words of Eric Garner and many who've come before them. And metaphorically, it's also the words of Philando Castile. It's the words of Sandra Bland. It's the words of Breonna Taylor. It's the words of Ahmaud Arbery. And we say their names, and we say their names tonight, and we say their names every night on online protests. And we will continue to say their names, and we will not let them be forgotten. And the breaths that were brutally taken away from them are rippling the cloth of the flag, and also yet bringing it life. And the words, Dr. King, the words are the stars in the flag, but they are not really stars. They are witnesses to our shame, because these words, these stars, are carrying deep, soul-crushing pain. The pain of centuries of oppression, of 400 years of trauma, as Dr. King talks about, which has to stop now, because this is an existential crisis for our country. And in the words of your father, Dr. King, who has been one of the guiding lights in my life, we need to live together as brothers, or we will perish together as fools. And so I feel we're better than this. And one last thing I want to say is that I don't think it's just about the police, because police brutality, it's the most in-your-face, crude symptom of systemic racism. But racism is everywhere. Police brutality is, I see it kind of as the ugly fruit of the ugly tree of institutional racism. And we need to cut this tree at its roots once and for all. So to that I say, hashtag online protest, hashtag Black Lives Matter. Thank you, Dr. King. Thank you to the extraordinary Bonita Hampton-Smith, the phenomenal Tara Gay, Inidra, Dr. Vanetta, Delise Drain. What an amazing team. Also, thank you, Sandra Camilo, Emmanuel, and Bree. And also, thank you, Ellen, for being here. And thank you, Chelsea Clinton. And thank you, Monique. And Caleb, all the people who are lending their voices. Because one thing that Dr. King and Bonita, all three of us on the screen right now, we've been reaching out to people in high places. And as you can see from this all-star lineup that we've had all week, we've had pretty influential people up in here. But there have been some people that we reached out to and actually had some calls with and said, yeah, I don't know if I can be there. I don't know. So the people who showed up, like Ellen, like Chelsea, like Monique, like Perry, like everyone who's with us tonight and all the previous nights, we saw you. We knew that when it counted, you were ready to take this bold stand. And I just want to say it's been an honor and a pleasure to work with both of you, phenomenal women.
And I thank you, and I appreciate you so much for bringing this to my attention. This was so important for now. I mean, so many people have felt included. They have felt this is a breath of fresh air, because it's very frustrating when things are happening like what's happening now in our nation on our streets, and I can't physically be a part of it. So thank you for thinking of so many people and aligning us with what's going on at this time. So
it's really, if I may say, thank you so much, Dr. King. It's really an extension of many conversations that you and I have had over the past couple of years about how critical it is to make sure that as we have these new technologies of the fourth industrial revolution, artificial intelligence, neurotech, virtual reality, augmented reality, that we don't embed racism into those technologies.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
You and I, Dr. King, had dinner at Sheryl Sandberg's house and all sat around a table and hashed this out and had the difficult conversations. But we failed with the internet. That grew too. We did not establish at the beginning how we're going to inculcate the right values. We have a new opportunity, a new dawn
Yes.
of a technological wave that's far more powerful. And yet we see that artificial intelligence already has embedded in it so many biases that are extremely harmful to African Americans within the healthcare system, within the criminal justice system,
Yes.
all throughout. And you've been so vigilant about that and such a leader in that space. And I have so enjoyed having those conversations with you on that topic. And this online protest is an embodiment that shows we're going to take all these technological tools and we're going to bend them to a social purpose. We're going to take them away from their commercial and militaristic purposes, and we're going to bend them to social justice. We're going to use them for art and culture and humanity and building those human to human links, because there's so many things that want to divide us right now. And I think as we make this transition, it's a very precarious transition we're in. If we want to make that transition to a more peaceful, collaborative, sustainable world, it's going to depend on having those authentic human-to-human connections, the ones that you, Bonita, Dr. King, Imidra, Dr. Vanetta, Delise have all been building with the beloved community, and really just the legacy of your father and mother, the legacy of your mother and father.
Thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you again,
amazing.
Drew. It is
Amazing.
I mean, women. If the soul of a nation is to be saved, I believe
You
we
must.
have this soul.
Amen.
And, you've seen that over and over tonight, and we are just so delighted that many of you have joined us and will be with us on tomorrow night. Bonita, tell us who's going to be joining us tomorrow.
We have Wynton Marsalis coming tomorrow.
Yeah, so we have Wynton Marsalis, we have Will Downing, we have Reverend Otis Moss, and I should have had my list with me because I didn't know you.
William Barber.
Pastor William Barber.
Reverend William Barber. We also have Representative Hakeem Jeffries, the one who introduced the legislation on excessive use of force.
Right.
Anyone else? Oh, and what is his name? The young man who said, "I just want to live," that went viral. He's going to join us.
Kendron Bryant.
Kendron Bryant. He's going to join us tomorrow night, and he's going to, give us some of that on tomorrow night, because that's what we want to do as Black people. We just want to live and express our true, authentic self in this world.
And Jason Nelson, I Matter. He's going to sing that song for us tomorrow. So it's an incredible lineup. Remember, if you want to take nonviolence training, please, NV365 at thekingcenter.org. Also, don't forget to sign the petition. We are at over 35,000 signatures. Keep signing, keep signing, keep signing. We can get 100,000 by the end of tomorrow. It's possible.
I'm saying 250,000. Let's go. Let's
go.
All right. Have a good night. We love you.
No justice.
No peace.
All right.
Sound.
No peace. No justice. No peace. No justice. No peace. No justice. No peace. No justice.